صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. We will now be starting the main program with the recitation of Quran by Sayyid Mousawie. Let's welcome Salaah ala Muhammad wa al Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا قوم إنما هذه الحياة الدنيا متاع وإن الآخرة هي دار القرار. من عمل سيئة فلا يجزى ومن عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فأولئك يدخلون الجنة يرزقون فيها بغير حساب. ويا قوم ما لي أدعوكم إلى النجاة وتدعونني إلى النار. تدعونني لأكفر بالله وأشرك به ما ليس لي به علم. تدعونني لأكفر بالله وأشرك به ما ليس لي به علم. وأنا أدعوكم إلى العزيز الغفار. تدعونني لأكفر بالله وأشرك به ما ليس لي به علم. وأنا أدعوكم إلى العزيز الغفار. لا جرم أن تدعونني إليه ليس له دعوة في الدنيا ولا في الآخرة وأن مردنا إلى الله لا جرم أن ما تدعونني إليه ليس له دعوة في الدنيا ليس له دعوة في الدنيا ولا في الآخرة وأن مردنا إلى الله وأن مردنا إلى الله وأن المسرفين هم أصحاب النار فستذكرون ما أقول لكم فستذكرون ما أقول لكم وأفوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد فوقاه الله سيئات ما مكروا وحاق بآل فرعون سوء العذاب فوقاه الله سيئات ما مكروا فوقاه الله سيئات ما مكروا وحاق بآل فرعون سوء العذاب آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم
صلوات.
We're now going to have the Qasida recited by Zainab Kareem. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
काश मैं महदी दौरा का ज़माना देखो काश मैं महदी दौरा का ज़माना देखो बारवेन है दर कर्रार का चेहरा देखो काश मैं महदी दौरा پھر اذان علی اکبر سے ہو آغاز سحر، پھر اذان علی اکبر سے ہو آغاز سحر، پیچھے مہدی کے میں عیسیٰ کا مصلی دیکھو، کاش میں مہدی دورہ کا زمانہ دیکھو، کاش میں مہدی دورہ پرچم حضرت عباس کو لہراتے ہوئے، پرچم حضرت عباس کو لہراتے ہوئے، میرے مالک میرے خالق سر کعبہ دیکھو، کاش میں مہدی دورہ کا زمانہ دیکھو، کاش میں مہدی دورہ صحن کعبہ سے نکلتا ہے جلوس عاشور، صحن کعبہ سے نکلتا ہے جلوس عاشور، اپنے اس خواب کو تعبیر میں ڈلتا دیکھو، کاش میں مہدی دورہ کا زمانہ دیکھو، کاش میں مہدی دورہ سامنے مولا کے جا کر کہو دل کی حاجت، سامنے مولا کے جا کر کہو دل کی حاجت، کب تلک دریا میں بہتا یہ عریضہ دیکھو، کاش میں مہدی دورہ کا زمانہ دیکھو، کاش میں مہدی دورہ صلوات
Thank you very much for that beautiful recitation. We are now going to, we're now very fortunate to have Shaykh Arif, who will be speaking to us on the wiladat of Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. Let us welcome him with salawat. Ala Muhammad wa al Muhammad. Shaykh Arif, for those who don't know, Shaykh Arif founded the Al Mahdi Institute in 1993 and currently serves as its director and senior lecturer in Usul al-Fiqh and Muslim philosophy. For over 20 years, Shaykh Arif has been at the forefront of developing and delivering advanced Islamic studies tailored towards training students capable of addressing the needs of contemporary societies. We're very fortunate to have him again speaking on this wiladat of Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. Salawat ala Muhammad wa al Muhammad.
Can we recite Fatiha for all our marhumin al-Fatiha? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin wa ashabihi al-muntajabin wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsan ila qiyam yawmiddin. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Looking at the positives of the notion of Imam Mahdi Salamullah alayhi, we can see that the Shia communities, be they Ithna Ashari or Ismaili or Bohra, with having a single Imam, whether present or concealed fully or concealed, living, dying, and being succeeded by another Imam, that these communities are kept together. They are unified. And Alhamdulillah, that's a great purpose that the notion of Al-Mahdi serves. If there are any problems, the problems are with the fatwa, and if there are any change, the change is in fatwa of the ulama. But as far as the divine guide is concerned, the divine guide is one. It keeps the community unified and gives them the same direction and the same identity. Now we can see, as opposed to that the Sunni community is very, very scattered. They have many different factions, very different directions that they have. It's not to say that they are bad or anything like that. I'm just looking at the practical point here of having one head that is appointed by God and who is somebody who is occupying the space of the Blessed Prophet. Now my phone is going off again and again, and I don't know what I've written, so bear with me while I look down and try and get rid of the lock. But you will find that, okay, so don't worry. Now the notion of Mahdi has existed for a very long time. I mean, for example, after the Blessed Prophet left this world and Bani Umayyah came to the Khilafah, we had Mukhtar after the Shahada of Imam Hussein, avenging the blood of Imam Hussein. Of course, he went to Imam Zainul Abidin to be the head of his movement, and Imam Zainul Abidin refused, and as opposed to that, he chose Muhammad ibn Hanafiya as the natural successor to Imam Hussein. Obviously, if Imam Hassan can be succeeded by his brother Imam Hussein, then Imam Hussein can be succeeded by his brother Muhammad ibn Hanafiya. Now when Muhammad ibn Hanafiya died, there was this theory that Muhammad ibn Hanafiya is the Mahdi who has gone into occultation. Now what does that say? As Sajidina, I believe, quotes in his book, that the idea was prevalent at that point as well. That people were waiting for a Mahdi type of figure who is a divine guide, who would lead them and who would take them back to the untarnished Islam of the Blessed Prophet. So this idea was not invented, it was always there. However, if we go beyond that particular notion of Mahdi that has always existed, so that gives a lot of credibility that the Prophet has spoken about the Mahdi. And of course, Sunni Shias both believe in this, and we will go into that in a little while. But if we look at it from another aspect, Mahdi Salamullah alayhi marks a state of completion for humanity. The hadith Mullah Sadra quotes in one of his books is that when the Mahdi comes, he will not come to make you pray and fast and give charity and perform Hajj, for you shall be doing that in any case. His task will be singular. He will place his hand upon the minds or the head of humanity and drive their intellect to their completion. So Mahdi marks the utmost point of human actualization of its potential. And that actually makes a lot of sense. From the time of inception of humanity upon the face of this earth, from what we can tell, from reading our history of Bashar or Adam and onwards, human beings have been on a unidirectional journey. It's a trajectory towards completion. We are always completing ourselves, not only technologically and scientifically, but morally as well. Now we have a notion of human rights, inalienable human values. And with the recent conflict not conflict, the war against the defenseless people of Palestine, we are finding that there is a deeper yearning to find a greater meaning to life. A spiritual purpose is taking birth within the souls of humanity. So we can see this, that human beings are on a progressive journey. And humanity wants to reclaim, maybe not reclaim, but to claim its glorious status of where it belongs. Now, if you remember that story when Adam was created, the jinn angels, they were not pure angels and they were not pure jinns, they were jinn angels. Quiz me afterwards about why I'm saying this. They protested. They said, look, this is not going to be a good one. This is not a good choice. It will cause bloodshed and corruption, and that's not what your vicegerent or the one that you leave next in place of you ought to be doing. So here the response that they got was, I know what you know not. And then Adam was endowed with all this knowledge, that those beings there who were objecting had to then surrender and submit that yes, he is more qualified than we are. So given the propensity of corruption within the human being or the human condition, there is something else going on as well. That thing within us is driving us towards our completion, where a point will come where we can overpower our injustice or our propensity to do wrong, and we will start doing right instead. So if you look at the human journey, it makes perfect sense that it should culminate in a Mahdi state. But as with humanity, we as a human community just don't have the ability as a collective to get it right. We always need a person to lead us and to take that final step. Now, Mahdi cannot come until humanity is ready to receive him. And what we are told about the Mahdi is that he will find the earth filled with tyranny and corruption, and he will fill it with justice and peace, and will teach people to harmoniously exist or coexist. Now, before that can happen, before the Mahdi can come, we ourselves need to understand the value of rule of law, rule of justice, the worth of peace and harmony. Humanity at large needs to know this before he comes and makes it possible for us to lead just lives. Now, if you look at the prophetic phenomena within the Quran, you will see that every prophet comes at a right time. They would not come before their due time. And when we read the Quran, we find a reference to Nabi Isa salamullah alayhi saying that there will be one after me whose name will be Ahmad. Now, the Prophet Muhammad did not know that he was the Ahmad prophesied by Prophet Jesus. I mean, of course, he understood that later on. But he was already destined to come at a particular time when humanity was ready to receive him, absorb his message, and then to take it forward. The point I'm making is that he could not have come before that time. Everything needed to be just right for him to come. So Mahdi cannot come before humanity is ready to receive him. Now again, looking at the Quran, we find in the case of Hud, Saleh, and Shu'aib and Lut, that a portion of humanity was saved and great many were destroyed. But when did that happen? When there was a clear distinction between good people and people who were not so good. When that clear distinction was made, that's when the decisive judgment of God came. Now, if you look at the story of Moses, Moses pleads to Allah and he says, do not spare them. Destroy them all. Now you can see that in the Quran. But the Quran spares them, gives them a sign one after another. And then the Quran says, we led them on that path. And we knew eventually they were going to meet their end. But there was a whole process taking place. If you read the Quran very carefully, successive signs that were coming and how they were becoming more and more distinguished from the righteous people. And then finally, they were led to that sea where they were drowned. And then the Quran says, وَلَمَّا آسَفُونَا إِنْتَقَمْنَا مِنْهُمْ وَأَغْرَقْنَاهُم. And when they angered us, we sought revenge from them and we drowned them. So there was a clear distinction between good and people who were wicked. Now the only time in history, prophetic history, we see a clear demarcation point between virtuous and wicked in terms of the global humanity was in the time of Nabi Nuh. In the time of Nabi Nuh, there was a deluge and a flood. And every culture talks about it. Abrahamic faiths, obviously by priority, but Hinduism, Chinese, other places, they all talk about this massive deluge that overtook the earth. Now here Nabi Nuh prays. He says, "O Lord, don't spare them. If you were to spare them, they will not give birth save to very wicked people. That time has arrived." Now when there was that clear distinction between two types of people, the final decree of God came and people were destroyed and people were saved. The story of Mahdi is this sort of a story. It's a global story. And it cannot happen. Mahdi cannot come unless, of course, there is this massive distinction between good and between bad people. Now, having said that, people are not bad. People are good. Majority of the people are good people. If you look at the millennials and Gen Zs during the war and plausible ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians, these were the people who spoke for the Palestinians fearlessly. They did not fear losing their jobs or prospects for jobs in the future or their income or making enemies or being ostracized, something that we can't do at this age. But a younger person can do it very easily, as these people have proven to us. So humanity is good. And this goodness and virtue that we are seeing is not confined to the label of Islam. In fact, majority of these people are unacquainted with any religion whatsoever. And yet they understand right from wrong and they are ready to commit to the right. And similarly, when they watched and saw the Palestinians and the Palestinians said, "Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakil," they found their true inner yearning being responded to when they found that there is a greater purpose to our existence. And we found suddenly the birth of the spiritual human. Until now we were talking about a moral human, a human that wants to operate on the basis of right and wrong, justice and human values. After the display of the massacre and the brutal killing of the Palestinians by the Zionists, I have nothing against the Jews or the Israelis. For me, a Zionist goes well beyond Israel and beyond Judaism. It's a state of mind. So when they saw this, when the Palestinians demonstrated their trust in God, it evoked a new state of existence within the majority of humanity. So we are seeing humanity is a good place. So when we look at the story of the Mahdi, it's nothing to do with the Muslims and the non-Muslims. I grew up thinking it will be the Muslims against the non-Muslims. In fact, I grew up believing it was the Shias against the rest of the world. And on that note, you see, think about this carefully. Mahdi is a growth-promoting notion. We are constantly growing. As the Quran says, if you do good, manifold good will happen. If you do evil, evil will be curtailed to itself. Goodness means growth and flow, elaboration and evolution. This is the human condition. We want to grow. We want to come to the fullness of our existence. So Mahdiism is not that bleak outlook that we have in our minds, that only a few will survive and majority will be condemned, because then that would defeat the purpose of God, and then those jinn angels were right in their protest against God's choice of Adam. Obviously, they said he's going to fail miserably, and if that was going to be the case towards the end of time, then God has failed miserably, but God said, "I know what you know not." Obviously, majority are going to succeed, minority are going to fail. So let's develop this more. It's nothing to do with Shia against the rest of the world. It is nothing to do with Muslims as opposed to non-Muslims. It is to do with the core of humanity, virtues and wickedness. Now we're looking at this world of ours. The people in Britain are good people. They are not bad people. They are actually very, very good people. They stand up for human rights of others. 80% of the British people or plus were against the war in Israel, in Palestine. Yet our government who represent us were vetoing at the outset any motion passed against Israel to impose ceasefire. And we were providing them with political cover against the will of 80% of the people. The Americans, 60% of the people did not want the massacre of the Palestinians. Yet Biden supplied weapons, and now Trump has just claimed Gaza as America's and just moved them out now. So against the will of the majority of the people. If you look at the Muslims were not concerned, I'm talking about the leadership, were not concerned about the plight of the people of Gaza. They weren't. The people's hearts were with the people of Palestine, but the leadership wasn't. And in fact, those people who even tried to assist the Palestinians were doing for their own political reasons and their own gains. So you can see here that when Mahdi comes, there will be a sharp distinction between majority of the people who will be virtuous and a minority who will be wicked but who are ruling them. And the same thing is said about the Pharaoh, that he weakened his people and he enslaved them. People were afraid of him due to his, obviously, might and his army. Doesn't mean that majority of the people were evil or bad. His armies were drowned, right? But not the Egyptians. The Egyptians carried on living there. And obviously the civilization continued. So that's the first point. Mahdi is nothing to do with Muslim and non-Muslim, the way we understand him. Secondly, we have this false notion that when Mahdi comes, there will be a utopia state. You see, if you rid humanity of its human condition, then those human beings are no longer us. It's a different species of humans. It has to be our community who learns to become mature, overpower its aggressive tendencies, and live by the rule of justice. Now, we have a hadith that when the Christians see the Mahdi, they will become Muslims. But that's very contradictory to the Quran. The Quran says there will be no one amongst them, but that they will bring faith upon him before his death. Now, if his death means before his death till the day of Qiyamah, if his death means the death of Jesus, then it means that there will be Christians until Jesus comes. If it means his death, the death of the faithful, then the faithful will continue being there until the day of Qiyamah. In both cases, the Quran is implying that Christianity will continue till the day of Qiyamah. Now compare that with the hadith of Ghaibatul Nu'mani, in which it says that the Mahdi will come and retrieve the Torah and the Injil and will rule upon the people of Torah with their Torah, the people of Injil with their Injil, and the people of Quran with their Quran. Now you can see the wordings, I might have got it wrong, but the people of Torah with their Torah, Injil with their Injil, and Quran with their Quran shows that no, it will be a multi-faith community. They will learn to live on standards of justice and value human rights and spiritually progressing towards God. Now all those things are nothing to do with the label of religion. Think about it. Justice is a universal notion. When applied, it's applied universally. It does not distinguish between a faithful of one faith and another. Human rights, again, is a universal language. We all have right to be fed, to our lives, to our freedom, to our education. It's nothing to do with any religion. Spiritual yearning. God has got nothing to do with a religion. God is found from within, our deep yearnings to find that deeper truth. So if you look at Mahdi, Mahdi is coming with the essential message of humanity. Or we can call it the broader Islam, surrender to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the utmost accurate sense. So this is not the notion that Mahdi will come and convert people into Muslims. And can you imagine if everybody became a Shia when Imam Mahdi comes? We won't be doing anything after that. With so many kushalis and wafats and the amount of time we spend in the mosque, it's not going down well, is it? Salawat. So Mahdi will not come to make anybody Muslim in that way, yes? And Jesus will not be running after pigs and putting them to death, according to our hadith, that Jesus will come and kill all the pigs. It is much different than that. It is much broader, the notion. Now, if you look at the Mahdi again, it is a point of unity for the Muslims. The Muslims believe in Mahdi. And I need to explain this point a little bit. The Shias believe in his birth and occultation by and large. I say by and large because there have been Shia groups who have believed that he has taken birth and died and will be resurrected. Some have believed that, well, maybe he will take birth afterwards. Sunnis, similarly, by and large, they believe he will take birth in a future world. Then some believe he's already taken birth. But the Sunnis and Shias both believe that Mahdi will come. And on top of that, both Sunnis and Shias believe that Mahdi will be successful in ridding this world from tyranny and oppression and filling it with peace and justice. Now, if you are a student studying and you are guaranteed that you will succeed, imagine how empowering that would be. Can you see this? Look at the Muslims. We believe in one God. We believe in the finality of the revelation. We believe in a final prophet. We believe in the finality of the Muhammadi Sharia, which qualifies us as Muslims. Not the finality of the prophet, but the finality of Sharia qualifies us as Muslims. We pray 5 times a day. Not 5 times a day, we pray 5 prayers a day. We fast the month of Ramadan. We perform Hajj. We give alms and charity, khums or zakat, whatever it may be. And we believe in the Mahdi figure, who will come and rectify the earth, and there will be prosperity after that. Now, imagine if the Muslim community can unite on the basis of the Mahdi and the Quran and one God. And being empowered that success will come. Our state would not be this. You see, look, right now, as Shias, we feel we are very oppressed, don't we? And in some du'as we say, in dua iftitah, it was right at one point to pray that dua, by the way, the later part of that dua, the second part of that dua, that look, we are very few in numbers, and you know, we were lamenting, and we are very few in numbers, we've got so many enemies, and so on and so forth, but we are 200 million right now, we're not very few in numbers anymore. And the people are saying, well, we're not your enemies anyway, you're in Britain, look, you can become the Prime Minister if you want. So I'm just saying this bleak outlook that we have is contrary to the notion of Mahdi. Mahdism is a very positive notion. It says you've got success, go for it, make that change. So Sunnis and Shias, if they can accurately understand the notion of Mahdi, maybe they can finally unite, be one, and move confidently forward. Now, when the Mahdi comes, do you think the history will make any difference to him? That who was the first Khalifa and who was the first Imam? He will just say, look, Imamat was this and Khilafat was this. Political leadership was this. Spiritual leadership was this. It's gone, it's past in history, now let's get on with it now. Can you see that? I don't think he will be in the least bit concerned about Sunni and Shia. In fact, he will say, be one now. Intermarry, dilute the differences, and become good people. The other thing that we need to express here is that when Mahdi comes, Salamullah alayh, the hadith says that the ulama will charge him with changing the religion, that he has changed the religion of his grandfather. Now analyze this for a moment. If the Mahdi were to cause reversion to the prophetic law of taking slaves, concubines, decapitation, amputation of limbs, flogging in public, do you think anybody would say that you are taking us away from the deen of your grandfather, or will people say you are causing a reversion to the deen of your grandfather? They will say you're causing a reversion to the deen of the grandfather, right? So it means obviously that Mahdi will come and reinterpret Islam in his own context. That's what it means. And it stands to reason that after Moses, the Prophet Muhammad came, and the Mosaic law was slightly tweaked to adapt it to the context of Prophet Muhammad and his community. Today, the Muslims are a global reality. And I'm saying this that the ulama need to think into how global Islam operates. You can't have 3 and 4 Eids in one country. It does not suit the community of the Muslims. So the ulama will need to think, how does global Islam operate and how can Islam be adapted to the modern world and the global community? Mahdi Salamullah alayhi would necessarily make those changes, and he would have to make those changes. And when he makes those changes, he will be charged with changing the religion, and that's the only way to interpret this hadith. So when we see Mahdi, we will see that a lot of things will be happening and a lot of things will be changing. You know something, you guys are very distracted. Is it such a boring talk? I mean, I'm feeling it's quite nice talk when I'm giving it. Now recite aloud Salawat. Right, now don't be distracted, okay? Recite another Salawat. Now, when you look at the signs of the arrival of the Mahdi, we see that these technological signs that we used to think would be miracles are actually signs of the progression of the scientific mind of the human community. So you see this, that there will be a call from the sky and everybody will hear it in their own language. Now we know now that we are on the verge of approaching upon such technologies, where we can just buy things to put in our ears, and no matter in which language anybody speaks, we will hear it in our own language. And then we find this sign that man will no longer need the womb of a female to have children. Children will be produced in wombs outside human beings, so artificial wombs. And we are talking about these notions now. So we are saying that the Mahdi time is a very real time. It is not a fairy tale. All these things are coming to pass. Now, one thing I ask here is, I know these hadiths are weak, and I always say this, that the hadith methodology is way too archaic and outdated. We just have 2 methods within the Shia. Either scrutinize the chains sharply or look at the popularity of the hadith. If you scrutinize the chains sharply, you lose many hadith. If you look at the popularity of hadith, you gain many hadith. But there's another method. Theological hadith need a different method. Historical ones need a different one. The fiqhi ones need a different method, like form and essence, so on and so forth. But these ahadith are weak. However, you are seeing that their content is true. So when you look at the content, then you say, well, the minds who gave these ahadith cannot have concocted them. Because 400 years ago, at least we have these works, if we don't say that they are extant from Kulaini's time and Tusi's time, and at that time when they were being recorded for the first time, we can say that, okay, the versions that we have are 400 years old. Tell me, anybody 400 years ago, could they have imagined something like this, having babies in artificial wombs, or hearing something in your own language and it can be in an alien foreign language, or that human beings will communicate with animals, and we are on the verge of attaining these things? So we can see now that those ahadith must have been from a very authentic source that knew what they were saying. So we can concede to the validity of these ahadith. They are talking about the futuristic signs prior to the coming of the Mahdi, and we can be pretty sure that Mahdi is going to come. Now, whether he's going to take birth according to the Ahlus Sunnah, or whether he is in occultation and reappear according to the Shia, but we know that the Mahdi figure is coming. And we know humanity is progressing towards receiving him. And what difference does it make, by the way, if you believe that he is in occultation or that he will take birth? It doesn't make much difference. I know it makes a huge difference to the authority structures, but if we can, as rational people, say that we do need these authority structures, whether the Mahdi is there or not, then what difference does it make? It makes little difference. Everybody believes the Mahdi will come. So these signs in themselves are enough to cause us assurance that there is a Mahdi who will be coming. Now, Mahdi's task is to establish physical justice. And that is the need of the human community. As I said, it empowers us to move forward. But it should also ask us to revise our belief systems and to scrutinize the things that we are saying, because we will not be able to move forward until and unless we acquire a positive mindset, outlook, and an attitude. If we are negative in our minds, that we are the oppressed people and we are the weakened people and Mahdi will come and save us at the expense of the rest of humanity, then it could very well be that we will be the rest of the humanity that we condemn, and not the people of the Mahdi himself. You see, look, when the Prophet came to his community, the Jewish people were threatening the Meccans and the Medinans that a prophet will come from amongst us and then we will predominate. When the Prophet came from amongst the Quraysh, the Jewish people abandoned him, and the Quraysh and the Medinan community, Aus and Khazraj, started following him. The very people who were waiting for him were the people who were antagonistic to him afterwards. So we need to have a very positive mindset that Mahdi is a global reality, is a very progressed state. But at the same time, we need to be mindful that what comes along with Mahdi is a very deceptive state. As I said, Mahdi is there for the justice within the human community, and of course the next part of this thing is Isa, who is there for the spiritual challenge, but we will not talk about him now. But together with Mahdi is that notion of Dajjal. Now when you look at the Dajjal, you don't find it strange at all. There are two sides of the same coin, Mahdi and Dajjal, Mahdiism and the notion of the Antichrist. As humanity progresses, so does the deceptive element progress. Now see how it is wonderfully happening. So, on the one hand, we have this state of Palestine and the way they are being destroyed. And then the Dajjali element, which has this ability to justify. Every time you will find justification for what the Zionists are doing. It will all be justified. So, it's like, give a simple example. When we employ people in other countries, in sweatshops, and make them work for pennies and sweat, so we'll say, well, this is wrong. You can't do that. The response will be, well, if I didn't employ them, then they would die of hunger. At least getting a little bit is better than getting nothing. And that's the justification. It's a very deceptive way of thinking. You can say no. Rather than saying that, these kids need to go to school. Create jobs for their parents where they don't need to send their kids to work. Their parents can earn enough and they can send their children to school and better their situation. Rather than saying, well, if I don't give him pennies to work for me, to make me millions here, they're going to die in any case. They're going to starve. That's a very deceptive way of thinking. So we are finding another, obviously, trend as well as humanity is progressing, the deceptive trend, the Dajjali trend. And of course, not denying the existence of an individual known as Dajjal. We're talking about a deceptive trend. Now look at materialism. We are in a state of comfort, so we are desensitized to the problems and the pains of others. We know it's all very, very wrong, what's happening there. But because we are in a comfortable state, we will only give them a certain level of attention. We will not be able to do more than that because of our deceptive state. What we are not understanding is that if those people suffer and if injustice continues, all of us as humanity, collective reality are going to suffer. If one level of humanity fails, the rest of us fail with it. That's what we are not understanding. You see, Imam Ali, Salamullah alayhi, and I gave this example earlier on, he was told, don't remove Muawiyah. It's not a wise decision. Now he said, I know it's in my favor to keep him there. Then Imam Ali at that point would have said, this is not a politically shrewd decision, because politics meant at that time was to control the masses through any means possible. He said, my sense of justice will not allow that. Now Imam Ali could never have been successful with his policy because humanity wasn't ready. However, he still pursued his righteous course, not only to bring about change to his immediate situation, but also to leave an example for humanity that will be enduring where humanity needs to reach. The rule of righteousness. If you look at the prophets also knew that they would not be successful in their own time. If you look at the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you can see a vast difference between the early Meccan followers of the Blessed Prophet and the Medinan followers and the middle Medinan followers, middle phase Medinan followers, and the later phase. Most of the people who started following the Blessed Prophet in Medina in the middle phase did not know anything about Islam. And they were not concerned about Islam's spirituality. And in the later phase, they did not know almost anything about Islam. When there was that truce, and the Meccans said any tribe can align or side with the Prophet Muhammad, the tribes needed to make a decision. Which side now will most accurately safeguard our interests? They were making political decisions. These decisions were not based on any spirituality or any law or any Islam. Primarily, they were based on their worldly, material concerns. And they were very different. Imam Ali says in his khutbah to the people of Kufa, where are the likes of the Sahaba of Prophet Muhammad amongst you? So Imam Ali was complaining that those people are not there. So the prophets knew that they will not be able to impact the human community and change it. But their view was towards the eventual end, that humanity will get there. Let's put things into motion, and it comes to fruition at a later date. At this point in time, the Muslim community needs to get out of its state of negativity, that we are oppressed. Right now, Palestine is being taken away from the Muslims not because of Zionist Israel, not because of America and Britain and Europe. It's because of the Muslims themselves. The problem with sectarian Islam, Muslims killing each other, the leadership of Muslim states who are only concerned about their own well-being at the expense of the masses, the state of disunity has resulted in what we are seeing in Palestine. Had Turkey, together with giving fiery speeches for the rights of the Palestinians, had actually been concerned about the Palestinians, they would not have supported a criminal like Jolani, who should be tried and executed for his crimes, for killing innocent people. Yeah, he's a handsome man, sits there and talks in a beautiful way, and his language is very appealing. But he's a murderous person. Can you see this? It's the problem with the Muslims themselves. So the Muslims need to get out of this state of negativity, of disunity, need to be empowered within themselves. They need clear thinking people and good leadership to move them forward. But then again, I will say, not Muslims as opposed to non-Muslims, but at least Muslims as a progressive community. And move forward and make a difference. Now, I don't think we should be disillusioned to think that we will receive the Mahdi. We might do, I don't know. Maybe after people like us guys have gone, you guys may receive him. But I don't know if we are there yet. We are not there yet. I think there's going to be a lot more devastation. If indeed the Mahdi story is like the story of Nabi Nuh, that there will be a clear distinction between two sides, then it's quite some time to go. I mean, yes, the Palestinian issue has made that distinction very prominent, but it is not sharply prominent yet. It's not sharply demarcated that this is this side and this is this side. We are not there yet. There's a lot to be done. But we need to be empowered, we need to feel positive, and we need to move forward and not expect any results. By the way, the situation will get bad according to our eschatological literature. A lot of people, a lot of life will be lost. And the interesting thing here is that we don't know if our literature has been borrowed from the Jewish texts. The literature of 2/3 of humanity perishing, it's either from Jewish scriptures or Christian scriptures that 2/3 of the Jews will die. And then maybe we have said that 2/3 of humanity will die, for example. And there are many, many other eschatological signs that are actually coming from the Jewish Christian texts, which are nonetheless our texts as well. But what I meant to say was from our sources primarily, or more older sources as the Jewish sources are. I think I've spoken enough there, and I'll stop. Thank you.
We have a few minutes for questions. Is there any questions from either side?
Mikdad, you were falling asleep throughout, by the way.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh Arif. Thank you for your confusing lecture. Number one, when the Messiah comes, we'll make him the Secretary General of the United Nations.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
When the Messiah returns, we'll make him the Secretary General of the United Nations. We'll solve all your problems. Number two, who said the Messiah will be in a human form that will come on earth? That's what I'd like to know. Thank you.
That's an interesting thing. I think for now, if he comes in any other form, I don't think we'll take him seriously. I mean, you mean as an alien or as an angel or something? You see, look, if he's no, I think when you talk about the Messiah, we've got two Messiahs, by the way. We've got Mahdi and Jesus, Salamullah alayhima, yeah? And I think they have to be humans because it's a human story. And for a human story to be successful, it has to be a human person to lead humanity along their journey. So I'm just, and then of course if the hadith of the Prophet that says that from the children of Fatima, somebody will come before the end of time, I suppose it implies a human being. Yeah? The Sunnis said it will be from the children of Imam Hassan, the Shia said it will be from the children of Imam Hussein, which is neither here nor there in terms of the coming of the Mahdi. But I don't think the Mahdi individual is more important than the Mahdi ethos within humanity at large. The Mahdi ethos within humanity is probably as important as the Mahdi individual, because Mahdi individual would be ineffective if humanity at large is not ready to make that or take that step. Yeah? So it will be both of these things, and I assume it would be a human, but yes, if it's something else, then it's something to ponder on.
Assalamu alaikum. Your lecture was very good. I learnt a lot. My question is, I've got two questions. One question is, like you said about technology increasing. We see it every day. 20 years ago, there's none of this Facebook, Google, nothing. Yeah, our grandparents didn't know of it.
20 years ago, Facebook was there.
Was it there?
Yeah.
You're well advanced
I remember
in time.
teaching my students, and they were playing on their computers, and I said, "What is this?" They said, "It's Facebook." I remember that.
You should have been in business with that
No,
other
one of
guy.
my students is here who was on Facebook at that time, by the way.
Okay. My apologies.
No.
I'm saying, what does our hadith say, our Arabic books say, Nigel Balaga say? Which is the last technology that will come before the 12th Imam comes? The last and the least technology. We see so much of this technology developing now, DeepSeek, Twitter, you name it, every day. There's something new every week, every month. Yeah. And number two is that when you see all this, unity, right? We can't see unity happening. Yeah. Because we are not united. Other person, third party takes advantage. Now, what does our book say about unity? When will it come about? When? We are not going to change. We have Ramazan's coming, Eid coming. We're going to have in one household 3 Eids. One is going to celebrate Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We can't be united on the Eid day, let alone loving each other in Muslim people. So what is your answer to this?
So as far as the end time signs are concerned, there are a couple of signs that are very high level advanced technologies. One is that Maulanas will be replaced by AI. I've just made that one up. But I want to add that one to the books. So one of them is that people will be able to move through thought.
Oh, really?
So now we know that, obviously, these sort of technologies are being spoken of now. Yeah? Quantum entanglement and just to be quantum portation or kinetic, I don't know what they call it. But we know that we are talking about it now. Two is that human beings will live long enough to see 7 generations of their children taking birth. And we know here as well that the DNA, when it loses its excess material and the aging process begins, well, we are now looking into, not we as in me and the Maulanas, but human community, into arresting the degeneration of the DNA so human beings don't age and they can live potentially for thousands of years. So I think these are the very, very progressive signs. And in fact, they actually bear with the story of Adam in Eden within the biblical text. And obviously this is not the place to talk about that right now, but it's very, very interesting. As far as unity is concerned, I think we need to look at it differently. I think human hearts are yearning for unity. The interpreters of law cannot understand the ethos of Islam and the ethos of humanity. You see, the law of the Blessed Prophet was there to provide growth to the human community. And the day of Eid, you just said Ramadan and Eid, the day of Eid was for human community of the Muslims to be one. But that ethos, that the essence of the law that the Prophet was giving has been sacrificed for the form of the law. They are interpreting the law in a very formal sense. They've forgotten the essence. Humanity is a global reality. Muslim is a global reality. Muslims need one moon, finish. Whether they are in Africa, New Zealand, UK, or the northern regions of Europe. One moon, whether you see it or not. Once the moon finishes, what happens? Once the lunar month finishes, what happens? The next month starts, whether you see it or not. The Prophet said, we are not people who understand how to keep records, so that's why we follow the moon. And there is so much looseness in those ahadith that anybody can conclude. And Hui made a very valid point. He said, it's a very wrong analogy to say that the moon has the first day in this region and that region. He said that's to do with the sun. We have an arbitrary date line where the sun rises and the sun sets. The moon has got nothing to do with that. Moon just comes out from behind the shadow of the earth, and that's the new moon. End of story for the whole globe. So here is the problem with the ulama in interpreting law, and they need to, inshallah, and they will. They need to adapt the Islamic law within the global human context. And they need to, inshallah, start doing that slowly, and they will. I have no doubt they will. That this unity amongst human beings is due not primarily to human beings, but it's due to what I will call, and I might appear a little bit primitive in this, the deceptive systems that are binding us to materialism. So we need enlightened people to talk with us, to remind us about our essence. Look, we love our neighbors, don't we? We will all feed our neighbors, won't we? We wouldn't distinguish or discriminate on the basis of color or religion, would we? So we all have that. We all have love and compassion. What is tearing us apart then? We are not tearing ourselves apart. It's the systems that are placed upon us that are ruling us are tearing apart. Yeah? So that's why we need to work hard and change this slowly and gradually by producing good thinkers that can change them. And of course, I don't think we can get there until we have an individual, and I firmly believe this, we need the Mahdi individual who can gain enough support on the ground and he can start making change and inspiring people through his charismatic leadership. But that was thank you, very good, thank you.
Salams. You know when we pray that Imam Mahdi comes, aren't we just praying for the world to become corrupt as well?
Sorry? Oh, so I didn't get that, sorry.
When we pray for Imam Mahdi to come, don't we, when Imam Mahdi comes, the world will be corrupt. So when we pray for Imam Mahdi, won't we be praying for the world to become corrupt?
No, not at all. World will not be corrupt. Imam Mahdi can only come when the world is ready to receive him. That, and thank you for that question, that is a very false notion that religion has put within our minds due to our negativity. We are very negative creatures, pessimistic, and pessimism doesn't drive towards growth. The whole human story is about growth, about confidence, about getting better. It's just that the religion has perverted the story of Mahdi. It's unfortunate. Mahdi can only come when humanity at large is ready to receive him. He's a master of good human minds. Human minds will be good when he comes. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
I'm Salam.
Very thought-provoking lecture. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, when you said the Muslims are at fault, you said something about Palestine and the suffering, but are you talking of globally? The Muslims are at fault because Palestine suffering has been going on for years. It keeps on happening and happening, and it's a cycle. So how and who, when you say, I know the arms are being provided and all that, how do we now, or is there going to be an end? Because it keeps on happening. Palestine's been pushed, oppressed, but nobody's really doing anything as such. And you said there are humans who are good people as well around. So how would you explain that?
Let me clarify. Some of the most brilliant minds are the Jewish minds. Some of the best humanitarians are the Jewish people, right? So when I talk about Zionism, I'm talking about Muslim Zionists and Christian Zionists as well. And you must have read about the Christian Zionists. Actually, Zionism was started by the Christians. Yes, the idea was conceived that Christ will come once the third temple is built. But if you look at the actual promises of God, there is no mention of the third temple. It's only in the visions of one of the disciples when he talks about the third temple. Otherwise, in what was revealed upon Moses and upon the subsequent prophets and upon Jesus, there is no building of the third temple. There's building of two temples, I think, not the third temple, because the second temple was there when Jesus came. Or was it? Yes, I think so. So there is no building of third temple. In fact, the prophecy is there that God says, how dare you split my land? And the first people to split that land was the United Nations by creating a two-state, the Israeli state and the Palestinian state. And there is nothing about the greater Israel within the revelation, to the best of my knowledge. It was just a vision that one of the disciples had. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, historically, far worse has happened to the Muslims than what's happening in Palestine, and you know that. When the Mongols, They devastated Muslims, totally finished them off, demoralized them. And the Muslims were very complacent. They thought that after Islam, nothing can overpower them. These guys came and just flattened them. They made, from some accounts, in Nishapur, Iqbal bhai, correct me, they had a mountain of skulls, right? 100,000 people they just massacred. Yeah, and they did that everywhere. What happened there? The Muslims reverted inwards, and that was the birth of esoteric Islam and Sufism, and the richness of Sufism that we find now would not have existed. So Muslims have suffered far greater devastation before. Palestine might be taken, fine. Greater Israel might be realized, fine. But we have a promise that goodness will prevail. And we know after every moment of human devastation, humanity's resilience has got humanity up, and we have claimed greater heights. After the First World War, we drafted the Charter of Human Rights. So after every calamity and defeat, humanity has become refined to a greater extent, and more of human beings have become better. Now look at the Palestinian issue. Because it's on social media, we get to learn about it. Simultaneously, other areas of the world, have you seen the amount of warfare there? Oppression there? Look at it. In Rwanda, what, million people had lost their lives in the civil war? Far more than the Palestinians have, right? So I'm just saying that the Palestinian issue has served to awaken the majority of humanity. It's just a part of what is happening. It's not a Muslim story per se. Why I talked about the Muslim most, I'm saying to the Muslims that as far as Palestine is concerned, it is our fault, nobody else's fault. Because we are disunited. The people who are at the helms of governments, whether Shia or Sunni, I think all of them need to be brought into check, and they all need to be accountable sharply, whether Shia or Sunni, doesn't matter. And the people are constantly fed with sectarian hatred by both sides, and this is our state. Otherwise, the Muslims, even if they were not very religious people, if they were united, nobody would dare step into Palestine, right? If they were united.
Thank you very much. There are actually a number of questions around, but Shaykh Arif, you're around for a few minutes afterwards, and inshallah.
Can we switch on other lights, because this is very.
We'll do that, inshallah.
Please.
But we'll have some questions afterwards. Right? We'll end if that's okay.
Sure.
And then if people want to come and ask some questions, they will do that directly.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Just a couple of announcements before Ziyarat. Next Friday, we have a program with Sayyid Subhani, who'll be speaking to us on insights from National Balagha. Shahr Ramadan program starts on 28th of February at 7:30 p.m. We'll be having daily talks, iftar on weekends, and we are trying to have a responsible Ramadan, so please do bring your own reusable crockery and cutlery. And finally, just a note for the children, if possible, please do not break the balloon arch that will be being used tomorrow, so please do not touch or go near the balloon arch on there. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذريته علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي السلام عليك يا حجة بن الحسن يا صاحب العصر والزمان عجل الله تعالى فرجه وسهل الله تعالى مخرجه وظهوره والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.